Welcome to the Hometown Gym Podcast, the place where we teach parents and those new to fitness the best practices of physical health so that you can have the ability to run around and keep up with your kids and grandkids, and so that you can smile when you look at yourself in the mirror, and most importantly, that you live a pain-free, happy, and long life. It was April 2020. I probably don't have to say more to invoke a pang of anxiety to remind anyone in the world how tumultuous a time it was some 4 years ago. COVID was on the rise and uncertainty plagued just about everyone, especially me. I can remember for one of the first times in my life that I wanted time to speed up, to fall asleep, and then just wake up some 3 to 6 months later when maybe all of this would be over. On the precipice of the COVID pandemic, I'll say that some good came from that time, and in particular, time spent to reconnect with friends on Zoom and FaceTime was one of them. As I quarantined at the time with my now wife, Sydney's family, I was fortunate enough to overhear some of Sydney's conversation with three of her very best friends and teammates from her time with Florida State softball. A phrase for that conversation has stuck with me to this very day. Not what if, what is. This was spoken by my wife's dear friend and teammate, Ellie Cooper. The mind is a puzzling place. For me, it can be so easy to allow my mind to get wrapped up into things that are not actually happening, which as a side effect can induce fear and anxiety. I can't remember why exactly Ellie said that phrase, but these words have stuck with me and aided my life in times of uncertainty. Ellie Cooper is an entrepreneur, the player performance director for Florida State softball, a former All-ACC team member and captain of the Florida State softball team, the captain of the 2016 New Zealand women's national softball team, a fitness and nutrition enthusiast, and maybe most importantly, one of my wife's very best friends, and dare I say it, one of my friends, and she's with us here this morning. Ellie, thank you for the words that you spoke on FaceTime that you probably had no idea that I heard those years ago. And hey, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for that story. I feel like I've said that in my time in my life, but I don't remember saying it. And I don't even remember the context in which I said it. So super cool that that got to you and that stuck with you. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, for sure. The mind's it's an interesting place, and I know that you have a business that basically is around that. I know that you help a Division I softball program in that specific aspect, and it's so funny in today's society in America where we have pretty much more resources than you could ever want, how much people are still just kind of plagued by anxiety, depression, or just getting trapped in their own mind with the thoughts that, again, as I said, it just kind of aren't real and aren't there. And so typically I would start in a different place, but I kind of want to start here just because this is where my mind's at. Where did that saying come from? What does it mean to you?
Not what if, what is. I think that in life, just human beings in general, we love to tell ourselves stories. And we spend so much time telling ourselves stories about things that we don't want to happen or we're trying to avoid. And it causes so much anxiety instead of getting caught in what is. And what is what is in front of my face. What are the actual facts about what's going on right now? And I talk about this with my clients and my athletes a lot of just like, what are the facts? Like what is actually happening instead of adding a narration and adding a story and making it something that it's not, or spending so much time thinking about what can go wrong. No, how about what can go right? Your brain, your physiological system can live so much better and like what can go right. And it all depends on the lens. We talk about that a lot at Florida State. Just kind of the lens in which you view what's in front of your face. And if we can view it with a really cool growth mindset lens, or just a lens of like what's facts versus what is all of these stories we love to tell ourselves as humans, so that we can allow ourselves to really just make the most of what's in front of our face, whether good or bad. So yeah, that's probably where it came from.
What a way to kick it off. Thanks for sharing that, Ellie. I appreciate it. And typically where I like to start the show is actually what we're working on in regards to our physical health. I know that you've ran half marathons in the past very well, by the way, and we're going to get into that in a bit. But what are you working on for your physical health currently? Is there something that you're training for currently? What are you doing?
I'm actually training for a marathon. So
the full thing. Let's go. All right.
thing. January 28th in Clearwater. So it'll be my second one. I actually ran my first one with Macy. Macy and I did it together. It was super fun. It was so hard though. Like the training just wasn't, we kind of just like got into it. We're like, oh, let's do it. And me and Macy didn't take it as serious as
Yeah.
it wasn't really that serious. We really did it for fun, but it was pretty tough along the way. So this go around, like we ran the half marathon last year. Me, Bailey Victoria, who's our strength and conditioning coach, and Kaylee Rafter, who's now one of our assistant coaches. We ran the half last year. And we were like, all right, let's do the full the next year, right? Because it's right before season starts. So we're kind of like priming our brain and our body for the marathon of a softball season.
I love that.
So we're doing the Clearwater Marathon January 28th. It's right before we start in February. So we'll be mind and body will be ready to go, and we're doing it together, which is super cool. So excited for that.
What is training for the marathon look like? How many times a week are you guys running? Are you following a program? What's going on there?
Yeah. So Bailey Victoria, our strength and conditioning coach, she also works with distance running at Florida State. She's really,
Very
really
nice.
good job. So she created a program for us, and we're following that. So right now in December, it looked like we're doing a 9-week program, which is pretty short, but I mean, the last one I did was 10 weeks, and I've run consistently throughout the year, but December was 3 runs a week, 3 lifts a week. And it's like a short run, and then on the weekend you'll do your longer run where we progress like up to 2 weeks. So this weekend I have my 16 miler, but right now in January I've shifted into 4 runs a week, where one of the runs now is an interval run. So like I did 1,000-meter repeats for 5 reps one day on the treadmill, and I got 6 miles today, 16 miles tomorrow, and just 2 kind of like total body lifts, just to keep it strong. And it's more of like a mobility strength kind of lift, just to keep the hips right, keep the knees right, shredding the core obviously right now. So it'll look like that. We'll taper the week before, and then we'll really just kind of shake it out the week of, and then we'll go just run the marathon and have some fun. Don't have a time in mind. It's Rafter's first marathon. She's one of our assistant coaches, so we're kind of just rocking with her, try to get her through her first marathon. It'll be Coach Vic and I's second one, so it's gonna be fun.
That's going to be a good time. We'll have to circle back and go over the results of that. Is there a goal that you have in mind for this, or is it just like, hey, I'm just going to go give this my very best effort? It's about the camaraderie. What's the goal there?
Yeah. My goal is to do it pain-free. So last time I was training, I dealt with runner's knee pretty bad, and it was like mile 6. I was like,
Not
man,
fun.
not fun. It was horrible. It was so painful, and I've been pain-free. I felt so much better running this go around. So I would just love to get through it without having like pain where it's just like so annoying. I just want to enjoy it, camaraderie, pain-free. Yeah, that's really it.
I love that you're doing that with 2 other people. Sydney and I did a half marathon as well back in the summer. And I remember training and going through that, and I was dealing with pain myself as well. I would get these sudden cramps like within my calves, which really kind of boils down to just not spending enough time getting my body temperature up and warm-ups and everything like that. And you talk about the amount of impact and everything that running has, just how many times your body weight is just slamming into your ankles, your knees, all of that. How's the pain been so far? Has it been okay? What's the body feeling like so far through training?
Yeah, my body feels great right now. It's way better than last time. I dealt with the runner's knee like every run last time I was running, and it was like 5 weeks in where I was like, you know what? Like I might as well just do all of my stuff on a treadmill or an elliptical or a bike. And I was just like, we're just gonna rock to this marathon and see what happens. And I got through it fine, but it was pretty painful, like during and after. And I'm like, I didn't need to do that, but just committed to it, and it's good mental training, I guess.
I was literally about to say that. Do you know who David Goggins is by chance?
Yeah, I love
Okay.
him. Have you
Yeah.
listened to the
Oh,
new podcast with him and Huberman?
it was really good. I listened to it the other day, and
Oh,
we'll link that here for anyone else who doesn't know what we're referring to. It just reminds me of him, even though his knees are completely messed up, that he's like, if I can run, I'm just going to go in
yeah.
and do that. So I think from a state of mental strength for you, even though you were going through all that with runner's knee, which again is it's that's not a fun injury. I was a cross country track and field runner
Yeah.
back in the day, so I've experienced that personally. So bless you for going through that and for your mental fortitude. It just what a What an accomplishment just from that alone. Ellie, where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in New Zealand. Dad's from New Zealand. Whole side of the family lives there, but I was born in New Zealand. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, actually.
Do you have any memories of New Zealand? What age did you come over here at?
So they just had me over there. My dad was actually playing softball. That's what brought my dad to the States, was he was playing professional fast pitch softball. And then he was playing softball in New Zealand, and my brother was born in the States. So they kind of just went over there, had me, he was playing softball. We were probably there I think they were there for a couple months, and then we came back. They had lived in the States. So it's kind of just like a trip to go have me, dad, play some softball. So naturally it was bound to play softball in my life, I guess.
Can you explain for folks the culture of softball within New Zealand? This was something I didn't understand until Sydney came into my life. Can you explain that to people?
Yeah, so it's just kind of like it's more popular than baseball. Men and women play it. Sometimes men and women play it together. The men are literally unbelievable. They'll throw a ball from 46 feet at about 85 miles per hour. It's like the craziest thing in the world to watch. I don't even know how they hit it. Travis Wilson, he's our assistant coach, longtime assistant coach. He was Sydney's coach. He's one of the best softball players in New Zealand. He never picked up a baseball in his life, and the Atlanta Braves signed him just because of how good he was at softball. So super popular sport. It's over there. It's rugby, softball, and cricket, honestly.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was it like growing up in St. Louis?
Cold.
I'm
It's
from
cold.
the Midwest, so I
Yeah.
understand what you mean when you say that I'm from Michigan originally. What do you remember? What'd you do as a kid?
I honestly, my brother's 17 months older than me. And it was just sports. Honestly, I played with my brother and his friends outside all the time. I started playing softball competitively. Like I was 5 years old playing with 10-year-olds. My dad was coaching a
Makes
team.
sense.
Yeah, my dad was coaching an older team in our organization, and that one of the guys that he coached with, his wife taught the 10U team, or coached the 10U team. So they were like, oh, just like put her in with the kids, you know. And I literally played with people older than me my entire life until I was the old one. But yeah, I was 5 years old playing with 10-year-olds, just like trying to get a walk or put a bun down or something. It was pretty funny. But I literally 5 years old was just like, oh, softball, let's do this.
Speaking of Andrew Huberman, he was talking about like how often basically your psychology can kind of handle losing and everything. And for that reason, it should be like basically what he said. He's like, it's best if you're winning like 80% of the time, losing 20% of the time. And he was talking specifically about kids that were playing up in age divisions and how that can be sometimes really hard because you're a 5-year-old playing with a 10-year-old. That's incredible. How was that experience? Like, obviously you succeeded. What was that like for you as you were much younger playing with the older kids?
From what I can remember, like I was just so grateful for any opportunity that I could get, because it was like I didn't play. I practiced with them all the time, but like I couldn't play with them all the time, especially like if we were like in a tournament, like they would let me play, but like it was really unusual. I was obviously a lot smaller than everyone else, so it was like, oh, let's put Ellie in and see what she can do right here. Like we're winning, let's go let Ellie play like second base or something like that. And I was just so excited, and I looked up to the girls, and I, for my whole life, like practiced with them. I played with them when I could. And then I also just played with like a team that was my age as well. So I kind of did both. So I was, I could push myself and like see if I could keep up, but then actually like go have some fun and play with people my age. So from what I remember, it was really fun.
That's awesome. Did you do anything else besides softball as a kid, sports wise?
Yeah, for fun, I played soccer and basketball. It was literally, I knew it was just for fun. I was super serious about softball. I played basketball. I really enjoyed basketball, but once I got into high school, I kind of stopped because I was already getting recruited, and hear those stories about people like tearing their ACL playing basketball. And
For
I
sure.
actually had a few friends that did it, and I was like, oh, like it's not worth it, because my high school team wasn't like super good, and I was not super good by any means. I really just did it for fun. Played some indoor soccer for fun. Kept me in shape too. So in
That's
high
a good
school,
time. It's a lot of running.
yeah, I know. And me and my friends, literally, we just had like a team. We weren't serious at all. We literally just played for fun. It was like a bunch of friends. Let's go play some indoor soccer. And I really enjoyed the fast paced indoor soccer versus the really slow outdoor soccer. And I was always the goalie in outdoor soccer, the hand eye coordination thing. So
Tough
But
position. Good for you as a soccer person as well. So
yeah.
that's awesome. What were you like in school academically? Did you care? Did you excel? What was that like?
Um, I I was good. I was good at school. I didn't care. So I didn't
Makes
necessarily.
two of us, by the way.
Yeah, like I was smart enough to like skate by without having to study extra. Like I did my work, I did my homework. It wasn't like I was one of those kids like I didn't want to like miss assignments or anything like that, but if I had a test I wasn't taking my books home and studying for it. It was just like, "Oh, we'll figure it out" kind of thing. No, I just didn't put the extra work into school because I was grinding, putting the extra work in with softball. My dad owned a facility and it was like at my hands every single day. So it was just like, oh, after school we're gonna go practice. I'm not even gonna take a backpack home.
And you said you were so entrenched in softball, and for a low level athlete like myself, like I was not very driven. I liked basketball. I liked to run. I was talented at running. I was good at it. I did not put any time into it. Didn't want to, didn't like it.
Mm.
Did your dad have to, hold your hand kind of through that process of training, or were you just basically like, hey, dad, I'm gonna go to the cages for a couple hours. I'll be back. What was that like?
Yeah, so my dad was a pitcher in softball. So that was unlimited BP for me for my
Good for
entire
you.
life. And it was legit BP. It was drop ball, rise ball, change up, move the ball, throw it hard, lob it in there if I needed him to. So it was more of my dad like, Ellie, my arm is sore. Like I don't know how much I can throw to you today kind of thing. My dad, I never had to be pushed. If anything, my parents were like, "Oh, Ellie, like let's go do something else. Like, why don't you take a break?" And I'm like, "Break? What?
I'm
No,
doing exactly what I want to do.
I
That's
know. What are
awesome.
you talking about?"
Hey, team, we hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to take a quick break and ask that wherever you're watching or listening to the show, whether that's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon, the way that the show will reach more people searching for content on the platform is if we have more reviews. Our mission at Hometown Gym is to help parents and people improve their physical and mental health through fitness so that they can live an awesome, pain-free, and happy life. And an easy way for us to help reach more people is if you could actually scroll down to the review section, give us a 5-star review, and maybe share a little blurb about how you've enjoyed the show or which piece of content has had an impact on your life. From the bottom of our hearts and the future listener who reads your message and starts to take action in their life, we thank you very, very much. Let's get back to the show. You mentioned the recruiting process. What was that like in high school, and why did you settle on Florida State?
It was super fun. I was recruited at a really young age. There's a rule change now. We don't need to get into that, but kids don't get recruited as early, which is a great thing. Super awesome thing. But I was recruited really young. Um, I was recruited by a lot of schools. I went on a lot of visits. So it was really cool to just see different campuses and see different cultures within like the athletic department as a whole. Fun fact, you might not know this, but I did commit to Alabama first for some reason. But
I did not know that, by the way.
yeah,
Interesting.
so I was
Okay.
really young. I was a sophomore in high school. I was 15 years old. I go to Alabama. They're number 2. Georgia's number 1. It's the first SEC series of the year. Alabama ends up sweeping Georgia, which means now they're number 1. There's 5,000 people in the stands. It was so different than everywhere else I had gone.
Pandemonium. That must have been awesome.
Yeah, and I didn't go on many visits where I actually went to a softball game. I went more in the fall and went to like football games, which I did go to a football game at Alabama, but I went to a football game in the fall and then a softball game in the spring. And I was like, this is it. Like they offered me and I was like, oh, I was like, mom and dad, like, this is it. My dad's like, I don't know, Ellie, I think you should get off campus. Like, just weigh your options out. And I was like, oh no, I think this is it. Super impulsive 15-year-old, the prefrontal cortex, probably not as developed as it should be.
For
So
sure.
didn't have, the right, but I made that choice in the moment. And then I literally did get off campus, step back, and about a year went by and I was now a junior. I was 16. I was a little bit more mature. And Lonnie Alameda, the head coach for Florida State, she kept coming to my games, not in an illegal way by any means. She was just at my games. And the Alabama coach never really came around much. I never heard from him much. I felt like I heard more from the Florida State staff than I did him. And it just felt off. It just felt weird. It was like an instinctive gut feeling. And I was like, you know what? Like, I know Florida State isn't as highly ranked as Alabama. They don't have as much history of winning yet. But I was like, you know what? I love that coaching staff. I know I'm going to go there and I'm going to become a better person and a better player. And the connection just felt, better. And as I matured more and realized what was actually important to me, I was like, you know what? Florida State's the place for me.
Amazing. And we're going to dive into the Florida State experience here in just a couple of questions. But I was really curious, and I heard a little bit of this from some of the younger players in Florida State last year and just talking with you. The transition from high school to college softball and the effect of just the mentality and the change in that for the players. What was that like going from high school to the collegiate level?
Oh man, it's so different.
Tell
Especially
me
me
more. Yeah.
coming from St. Louis, Missouri. I was really highly recruited. I was, one of the best softball players in Missouri. The competition in Missouri is not that great. Like I played on a really good travel ball team and I played with some athletes that went to some pretty big schools and were definitely like better than me, pushed me. It was great. Then you get to Florida State and it's just the way that we teach softball, the game within the game. It's not just hit, field, throw, run. It's like the game within the game, being smart, being intuitive, having a softball IQ, knowing what you're going to get in the batter's box. It's just like a whole nother level up, which I enjoyed. I like leaned into that. I love a challenge. I love to learn. And that's kind of what made me better. The mentality thing is just like, I'm not guaranteed a spot. Like you're not guaranteed anything. You know what I'm saying? You got to earn your spot every single day. More than you never want to get comfortable with kind of where you're at. It's just this constant urge to get better and learn and, compete. But at the same time, we're all in it together. And just I failed at my freshman year. So my story kind of like my freshman year, I earned a starting spot in the lineup. I played first base my freshman year, had a really good fall, didn't get challenged much. I crushed it in the weight room, crushed conditioning. I was awesome at practice. School was fine. Like I was like, oh, I can do like, this is great. Like I just rolled right in. And then the spring comes around and you start playing better pitching and better competition. And I earned a starting spot. Took me 20 games to work my way out of the lineup. Wasn't because I didn't work hard. Wasn't because I wasn't following the rules. Wasn't because of school. It was because I didn't know how to fail. I didn't know how to deal with the pressure of, oh my gosh, I'm living my dream. And then I start failing. And then I've never failed this much in my life. And softball's never been this hard in my life. And I'm like, I have nothing to go to other than frustration. And then I try harder and then I do worse. And I'm like in this hole. So then start working with a mental performance coach. And I just chipped away at it all year long. I was in and out of the lineup. I would come in from a pinch hit. I would play defense late. If someone got hurt, I'm the first person off the bench. So I'm player number 10, which was fine. I did it to myself. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to learn, be the best teammate that I can, and just try to get better in any way that I can. And just kept chipping away, chipping away. We go to the World Series for the first time. And I get a pinch hit against Baylor. Pitcher Whitney Canyon. She's like a 6-year senior. She's like 23 years old. I'm 18. I'm like living my dream, but I like didn't make the moment bigger than what it was. I just stuck to my training that I had been working on all year long. And I ended up hitting a double off the wall my first at bat of the College World Series, where you would think would be the time where I feel the most overwhelmed. But it actually was the first at bat of the season that I felt calm and I was seeing the ball really well. It looked like a beach ball. And I was like, in that moment, it clicked for me. I never went back. I still struggled at certain points in my career, but I never went back to the place that I went to. But it's because I had things to go to. I worked really hard to have some really tangible tools that I could use when I wasn't doing my best. So that's kind of where I also fell in love with the mental performance thing, because I lived it myself and I saw what it did to me. And I was like, man, like I want to do this for other people.
What were some of the things that you were struggling with when you were talking about I couldn't really deal with failure? I have only known you as a very confident, strong person mentally. But what
Mm-hmm.
was that like for you when you were going through that process?
Yeah, I kind of felt lost because even in high school, I was like that. Like I did CrossFit. I wanted to go in the gym and just like push myself to these limits that like made me tap into this like mental capacity that I had to have if I wanted to keep going. Um, and it was the first time in my life, in my softball career, where felt like I didn't know what to do. Like I felt like I couldn't even tap into that mental capacity. Because it wasn't enough. because it was me living my dream. I was finally at Florida State. I had been working for that my whole life. Every workout I ever did was like, I'm pretending like I'm going to the World Series. Like that was it. Like it was this vision that drove me every single day. And then I got that opportunity at Florida State, and I still had that vision to get to the World Series, but the competition was so much more elite than I was, and I start failing and I didn't know how to deal with it. I had never dealt with failure like that in high school. I think that was the thing, is like I really never had to tap into that. Yeah, I had bad games, but it didn't last for 20 at bats. Like it
For
lasted for
sure.
like at bats, you know? So it was just like it just kept happening and happening and happening and happening. And then the self-talk gets really bad, and it's just like I'm so overwhelmed, and then I'm out of the lineup because that's what it's like. Like you don't perform, you're out. Um, for that long, at least. You know what I'm saying? So it was
Yep.
never really like
Yep.
that
I
in high
follow you.
school. And travel ball was kind of just like, oh, like she's our second baseman or she's our shortstop. She's gonna play like no matter what happens. So I just felt like I had never felt that before. So I literally was just like, went to our head coach and I was like, I'll do anything. Like I have nothing to go to right now. I'm frustrated. I have no idea how to get out of it. I keep working hard. It's not working. And insert Brian Kane, who's kind of my mentor, mental performance coach. And that's kind of where it all started.
What one or two pieces of advice could you offer to, I guess, somebody really young in their college career who's maybe going through something similar?
Um, I think number one is like you're human. You're a human playing softball. So you're it takes really intentional hard work. You need things to go to when you need something to go to. But what happens is people don't have intentional daily work on their mental skills to develop tools to go to when you're feeling those things, because you are going to feel them. There's no not feeling frustrated. There's no not feeling nervous. There's no not feeling pressure. It's just like when you feel that, what do you go to? Do you go to a tool you have worked on to help you bring your feet back on the ground and see the moment for what it is, and go attack your training? I think that is it, and it's intentional and it's everyday work, just like you go to the cages, just like you go to strength and conditioning, like all of these things, like you work on your physical skills all the time, and people just wait. They just want the mental thing to happen, but it doesn't work like that. Like you got to go to the gym for your brain, for your mind. You need things to go to, and you need clarity on what they are and how to use them. Would be number one, because that's just, I knew I needed mental fortitude, mental strength, mental performance, but I reading books isn't going to just do it. Reading inspirational quotes, those are great things, but they're also, if you don't use them or act on them, they're just words in space. Listening to podcasts is great, but like, what do you do with that information? Do you just
Yeah.
let it motivate you? Because motivation's fleeting. It's not a skill that you can work on. That'd probably be number one. And then I think number two, and a lot of people say this a lot, is just learning how to give all of your energy and focus to things that you can control. And you have to get clarity on that. And how you get clarity on that is really just this environment that you create for yourself, because your environment creates basically your mindset. And if you want this elite mindset to be able to deal with whatever's in front of your face, life is hard. Whatever sport you play, whatever job you're in, it's challenging. It's not necessarily hard. It's challenging at times. If you want a mindset to be able to deal with that, you have to have an environment that you're creating for yourself, because your mindset creates your perspective, which we call our lens, and your perspective creates your reality. So if you want this really cool lens and perspective of growth and strength with things on life, you have to intentionally develop the mindset to have that, because human nature, you don't. Human nature is your brain and body are going to try to protect you from harm versus lean into it and become better on the other side. That takes conscious effort, mentally, physically, emotionally. So if you reverse engineer, if you want that perspective, you want that ability to tap into that elite mindset, you have to create that intentionally with the environment you're putting yourself in, which is, it's a lot of different things. Like your family environment when you're young, you can't necessarily control that. It is what it is. But as you get older, you can control your environment, what you're consuming, whose energy you're consuming, who you're around, what you're looking at on social media, what music you're listening to, what books are you reading, what podcast are you listening to, what are you telling yourself, like your environment, your internal environment. So I know that's kind of a lot, but those are probably the two biggest things for me.
Those are gems, Ellie, and thanks so much for sharing all that with us.
Mhm.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. That's really key stuff, especially, and this goes beyond, we're going to talk a lot about college softball, fitness, all that stuff, but it even goes beyond that. And I think that's a good thing to do for just humans in general.
Mhm.
So thanks for sharing that. That means the world to me to be able to hear something like that and just hear your experience on that. You talked a little bit about the freshman year. What was it like playing for Lonnie Alameda? What was it like when you first met her? Tell me about that experience.
Um, it's really, I will do my best to put it in words. I think Sid, your wife, knows this. You have,
So I've met Coach, and I think that's a good way to put it. And I've only talked to her a handful of times, but
yeah,
she makes me feel like I'm the most important person in the world
yeah,
when I have spoken to her, which is incredible. Anyway, continue.
yeah. So it's just something you have to experience. She's like an experience. Like everyone she comes across, it just, they remember her. You feel her connection, you feel her love, you feel her intentional. She gives you her time and energy when, you know what, she doesn't have a lot of time, but she will dang sure make it if she needs to, you know. She's just someone who saw things in me that I saw in myself, didn't know how to bring it out, didn't know how to grow it or build it. um in the recruiting process, she was just so down to earth, so genuine. I felt like I could be myself. I didn't feel like I had to put on this front or this face or anything like that because I didn't think she was doing it. I think what you see is what you're going to get. Everyone's like, oh, what's Coach like as a coach? I'm like, what is she like when you meet her? Because it's the same thing. Like
That's
it's
awesome.
just a human being coaching softball. Um, and there's no fluff. There's no, I'm going to put this front on for you. It's just real, it's genuine love, intentional time and connection. She just has this way of finding things in you that you never knew you had in yourself and pulling it out. And she never gives up on you. She has, I've seen her give people chance number 1, 2, 3, 4, and on chance number 5 they finally get it. And I'm like, wow, like if they didn't have you, they wouldn't be here. Like any other coach, they would have just thrown in the towel, given up. But she does not give up until chance like 10. And in my career, even I struggled with that sometimes as a player. Like, what, like, why? Like, why are you doing that? And then now that I'm on the other side, I'm like, I get it. She's literally just trying to save the world one human being at a time, and she's doing it. Like she's actually doing it. And it's the coolest thing to see behind the scenes too. Um, how much she deals with on a daily basis, and she just carries it with grace. And she just loves softball. She loves humans, and she wants to grow the game, and she lives it every day.
Yeah, and you've seen this from multiple perspectives as, prospect, player, and even now
Mhm.
coach. And we'll kind of talk about the difference between that a little bit. I don't know if you can answer this question, Ellie, but what's one or maybe two of the greatest impacts that the coaches on Florida State had on your just on your life?
Um, I think number one would be perspective. Um, Kocha and the boys too. They were always right behind her. Um, the perspective on life. Like, yeah, softball is serious, but it's not that serious. It's softball. Cancer is serious. Like that, just putting these things in perspective where you're like, you know what, you're right. Like I get to do this. This is an opportunity for me to go out, have some fun with my sisters, and do some really cool things along the way, and just always keeping an attitude of gratitude, keeping the perspective of, we play for those who can't at Florida State, because we are so lucky. There's so many people that wish they could be doing what we're doing. for many reasons people don't get to. 0.5% of softball players maybe get to come through Florida State, probably less than that. Some because they didn't get recruited, some because they didn't have the resources growing up, some because they physically can't do it. And that perspective on life, because I was someone who took everything super seriously, in high school, softball super serious, it's life or death. And I kind of came to Florida State with that approach, and it didn't work for me at the start. And then kind of gained that perspective, and everything really started to change in my life in general.
You mentioned that you played first base when you first got to Florida State. Did you play first base, or what other positions did you play when you were in the field?
I started at first base just because I was recruited as a third baseman, shortstop. When I got to Florida State, we had a redshirt senior at third base, redshirt senior at second base, and an All-American shortstop. So it was really the only place I fit in. If I was going to be in the lineup, it was going to be in the outfield or at first base. And I was like, sweet, I don't care where you put me. If I'm in the 9, sick. So started at first base. I really enjoyed it. Got to learn a new position. One of our outfielders broke her finger, so then I ended up playing outfield for a little bit. And then went through that whole story, worked my way out of the lineup. And then my sophomore year played second base, and I played every single game from my sophomore year on at second base. And it was my favorite position I've ever played in softball.
What were you like as a hitter?
Me as a hitter, I was more of a situational hitter. Like we had, I hit for like average. I could do a little bit of everything. I hit from the left side. I was kind of your gap to gap contact hitter, a lot of doubles. I would pop one out every once in a while, for sure, but wasn't a power hitter by any means. It was my job to get on base, get people over, just be consistent spark at the top of the lineup or wherever they put me. So Jesse Warren could hit me in, Alex Powers could hit me in, or I could move a runner and they could do their thing. We had a ton of All-American power hitters. So really owned my role. My freshman year, I thought I was that home run power hitter. Didn't work for me. Had a serious conversation with Travis Wilson, which changed my hitting career, of just really leaning into like my tools and what I'm good at, and like really perfecting my craft and my identity as a hitter. And then that's insert the couple all ACCs in there, and had a pretty decent career for the rest of my 3 years there.
I don't know exactly how to ask this question. Sydney obviously describes this to me, right? When you guys are going the process of waiting on a pitch or sitting on a pitch, how are you processing what you're going to hit as a batter, especially at that level when the ball's coming at you, 65, 70 miles an hour, which is, I think, comparative to 100 miles an hour in baseball.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's super tough. Like, but that's where the preparation comes in. So we prepare all week. We watch video. We put what we're going to see on a machine, and we get after it all week long. So we have a really good plan. You got to have a really good plan going in. You got to know what you're going to get, or you got to know what you want, so that you can kind of keep it simple in there. And I'm looking for one thing, because if a pitcher has 3 pitches, she throws for a strike. You're not just going in there and like hoping that you hit one. Like, you need to know which one you're looking for, and you need to know how to get there. So that's another big part of like what we push our athletes for in men's performance, is like knowing the how behind everything you're doing, so that you can match your self-talk with the task at hand versus the narrative that we like to add things. So seeing things as is for facts. You've got to know, what does my swing demand for me for the pitch that I want to hit, so that I can go in the box, match my self-talk with that, and then just let my body do what it's trained to do. Because I could go hit softballs with my eyes closed right now if you're throwing them right at me, because I've done it for my whole life and my brain is wired to do it. The connections have been made. So it's really the intentional work on the front end, having a plan going in the box and doing your best to be present and match that self-talk with your plan, so you can just let your body go do what it's trained to do.
Hey everyone, quick break from the show. Our mission is to help as many people as possible increase their happiness and confidence when it comes to their physical appearance. By way of doing that, that also creates an awesome byproduct of bettering their physical health, which is going to increase their longevity as well. If you could take about 20 seconds, click the share button, that's the little up arrow in the podcast platform, and share this episode on your Facebook or Instagram page. That would allow us more opportunity to change someone's life. While it means the world to us, more importantly, it'll mean even more to the viewer who just happens to stumble upon your post or story. Thanks so much. Let's get back to the show. I love it. You had mentioned previously that you were always in the gym. It sounded like you were in the gym even in your early days growing up there, Ellie, which is awesome and something I wish I would have done. Looking back on my life, what role did fitness and conditioning play in your training when you were at Florida State playing softball?
Um, it was huge. I mean, number one, like just the durability and the strength to endure the seasons that we do. But also just the pushing, learning how to push the limits and talk through it to yourself, and see yourself succeed in things that you didn't think you could, and just building that mental capacity to tap into. It's just another area outside of softball to help you develop a mental capacity to do hard things or challenging things. Um, so that played a huge role. And then me, I just love fitness. I love moving. I do it every day to this day. I'm the same exact way. Um, it just was like allowed me to like go do something different and put my energy into something other than softball. So it was just so fun for me. And you develop this cool like culture within your team in the weight room when you're grinding it out together. And it's the same thing to this day, training for a marathon with two of my really good friends is like, there's just this bond that's created through shared adversity that I don't know if I'll ever shy away from. Just being in a team sport, I feel like that's like ingrained into my soul at this point, but just really my safe space. And it was super fun. And we all love gains. We like to look good too. So there was that aspect of it,
True
can't
that. Yep.
that.
Was there anything in particular that you had to work on in the weight room or in a conditioning piece for when you got to the collegiate level?
Mine was more just building strength. So the conditioning was there. I was a little bit above average with speed, but always like with softball and the speed, you can lose your speed pretty quick. So I had to keep on the speed stuff. And then I'm a middle infielder. So change of direction was always huge for me. So being able to be light on my feet, but I had to be strong. So when I was at Florida State, we did a ton of heavy lifting. Looking back, loved my strength and conditioning coach at the time, but I think right now what our team is doing in the weight room is unbelievable. Our strength and conditioning coach is really good at her job, and it's a lot of heavy lifting, but a lot of plyometrics, speed work in the middle of sets and reps in that. So those two things combined, I think, are really cool. We're seeing really, really good gains within our team from seniors, which is crazy. We have seniors going up in numbers where they're really seasoned athletes where you would maybe see a plateau, but like they're still getting stronger. They're getting more mobile. They're getting quicker. I think this fall we had every single one of our athletes increase their 40-yard or 20-yard dash time. And that's just like unbelievable to see in our older players, but it's kind of, that is a direct correlation to what they're doing in conditioning and in the weight room, and that contrast between the speed and the heavy and the mobility work, which is probably something I should have done a lot more of. Is the mobility work definitely would have helped me more in my collegiate career, but we're emphasizing that a ton right now in our athletes and seeing some really cool stuff from it. So yeah.
How did that kind of change as you're obviously more into adulthood, post-playing career? How did the fitness and conditioning change from college to kind of what you're doing today? Obviously, you're running more, but what other things are you implementing or have you learned through that time?
Yeah, I got honestly less lifting. Right out of college, right back into CrossFit 5 days a week, and I was kind of just like crushing my body.
Me
Um,
and you both. I experienced the exact same thing. Tell me more.
yeah, just like crushing my body with lifting. And I was always really good about like the stretching and the mobility, but I still didn't feel great. Um, I looked good, but I didn't feel good. And it was like, I was over it. I was over not feeling good. I was like, cool, Ellie, you look great, but like, I don't feel great. So what's the point? So just dialing back. I love lifting. I still lift. I lift heavy. I don't ever really lift super heavy more than 4 days a week. I implement cross training in there. So I'll swim, I'll run, I'll bike. I like to explore different things versus doing the same thing all of the time. And I had that in college. It was you lift 3 days a week, you condition twice a week, and you play softball. So there was a contrast and a mix in there versus lifting every single day, back to back to back to back. So I just learned to listen to my body, and just get creative and do different modalities of training. So I'm still athletic and I can still move and I can still feel good in life. I'm playing the longevity game now versus the how strong can I get in this moment right now game. And that shift was a tough one. So it was definitely an experimental thing for me. But yeah, that's what I'm kind of into now is just I trained for a Ironman during COVID and it got canceled 10 days before the race. That was just,
Oh, that's
oh my,
devastating.
it was because you know what, Brandon, it was so hard. I wanted to do it once and I never wanted to do it again.
There's a lot of time and training and effort, I'm sure, that went into that.
Yeah. It was unbelievable.
Goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was literally like, you're joking me right now. But anyways, whatever is what it is. I got the training in and that's the
It's
finish
the hard
crossing the
part.
finish line is just like the outcome, right? But
It
the
is.
process of the journey of the training was really where the money was made. So definitely got through all that. It was an absolute grinder. Um, but yeah, that one was tough. But that was when I trained for that, it was kind of like, wow, like I just really need to like just dabble in different things. It's super fun. Had to teach myself how to swim. That was so fun. That was so challenging. And then being on the bike for that long, I was like, oh, I feel like I'm a kid on a bike. Like, oh, I should get on a bike more. And
You're
then I
you're ma
started
you're
running.
making me wanna do a triathlon here, Ellie.
Yeah, it's super fun, but it's so time consuming. A triathlon would be great. Ironman, whew, I hope you have 20 hours a week extra on top of everything you do. Um, but
Yeah, we were previously talking to a buddy of mine who he did a 3 half Ironmans, and the amount of time that he was putting in even just that was just mind-boggling when you're telling me about going for a 16-mile run tomorrow, and I remember, we never did 16 miles, but I was up there, 12, 11, training for the half marathon. Just running is very therapeutic and I enjoy it. But I was just like, man, it's sucks. You got to go out there for 90 minutes to 2 hours just to go run and
yeah.
do something. But it's
Oh
it's
yeah.
rewarding in and of itself as well.
Yeah. I don't want to run 16 miles tomorrow, but I'm going to. Like I like after 10 miles, I never want to do it. But as we know, that's kind of where, that's where the tides really change when you do things you don't want to do. So that's really why I do it. But the marathon itself is super fun. Like it's super fun to see all of those people and then like do it, grind it out with your homies. But obviously you can't get to that if I don't do this 16-mile run tomorrow. So we're just gonna endure and do what we can.
Yeah, 100%. I love what you said about just kind of adapting your fitness regimen over time. I experienced really the exact same thing that you did. I was a CrossFit person, still am,
Mhm.
largely to this day, but I went hard on volume, right? It was really addictive when you
Yep.
get into that because there's always something to work on. There's always something you can be better at. There's a competition style to that. And I was really into that about 2019. My shoulders, hips, ankles, I probably looked better than I ever have in my life, right? Same thing as you, Ellie. And I never felt worse. Like it's mind boggling to think about how poorly that I felt back then. And what I'm doing now is I dialed way back on the weight training and I really just focus on, hey, moving well, also playing the longevity game. It's why we have this podcast and we're talking to people like you to get the message out there. They're like, hey, it's not necessarily going to be about, attraction or how much weight you can lift, but more so can you play with your grandkids when you're going to be 60, 70 years old? Can you get up and off the toilet when you're 90 years old? That's a personal goal of mine, there, Ellie, not to have a
Yep.
TMI or anything, but I want to be able to
Oh,
have
that's
that
excellent.
functionality
Yeah.
throughout the duration of my life. Right. And that's the whole purpose of why we're having this conversation today. So thanks for sharing that. I absolutely love that. I want to go back to performance anxiety and kind of the mental side of softball a little bit more, considering that the games, it's largely a game of failure, right? You think of a batting average at hitting 300 is excellent, right at that level, which means you're going to be failing 2 out of 3 times that you're going to be coming up to the plate. What were some strategies or coping mechanisms that you use? And I don't want you to give away, I guess, any secrets maybe that you're using today there, Ellie, but maybe that you used personally in the past to navigate the stress and anxiety associated with a high level competition.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into that question. There's definitely no secrets. Want to share as much as I can. Um, it's just a lot of intentional work. So it takes a lot of time to build things to go to, kind of like I said. So like in competition, when we're failing, we have a lot of routines, a lot of transition routines. Like at Florida State, we talk about you have your green lights, yellow lights, your red lights. Your red lights are obviously like performance anxiety, not feeling good, losing control, and having something to go to when you feel like when you're in your yellow lights, your red lights, right? So we just routinize. I don't even know if that's a word, but it is right now. Um, Everything that we do in softball: pregame routine, transition routine, at bat routine, pre-pitch routine, release routine. So we have all of these things to go to. So like, I'll just give you a really specific example. If I'm in the
Please.
box, I'm starting to feel it. Like maybe we're, games on the line, crowds, getting hyped up, and I'm starting to feel that, increase in my heart rate, and I'm starting to kind of shift into those red lights, where I might lose control. I'll be aware of that. So number one, I got to have the self-awareness to be aware that that's happening. And then I have to have the self-control to step out and hit my release routine, which would be a physical action. So for me, I would redo my batting gloves, take a deep breath, say something to myself, a verbal trigger like stay in it, or be present, or so what, next pitch. And then I would step in the box, deep breath, boom, and I go. So in that moment where I'm feeling it, I have something to go to try to shift me back as close to green as I can. So it's about getting as green as you can. You can take it before you get in front of a barbell, whatever, a presentation at work, get as green as I can. How in control of myself can I feel? Number one rule of men's performance is you cannot control your performance until you control yourself. So got to learn how to control myself, so that just the breath is probably the biggest thing. If you watch Florida State softball, you'll see the intentional breaths that the hitters take before
I
every
can
single.
literally think of them as I'm thinking of,
Yep.
Devin coming up to the plate, or Janai, or
Mhm.
I can literally see that happening right
Yeah.
now. That's super cool.
And we work on it in practice. It doesn't just happen. I don't just say, hey, you need a pre-pitch routine. You got to take a deep breath before every pitch. If I did that, they would never work on it. They would never do it. We do it in practice. We work on it in between, at bats during BP, stuff like that. We sit down, we talk about it, we get clarity on it. Having transition routines in softball is huge. Like, you can use Sid as an example. She's a catcher, so she has to put her gear on. So something like that, where I'm transitioning, if I have a bad at bat, and I have my batting gloves on, that's kind of my barrier. So like, as soon as the batting gloves come off, I got to transition into what I need to do next. And what Sid would need to do next is go get her catcher's gear on, so she can sit there and she can be frustrated, continue to be frustrated. But once that last latch goes on her, her leg, if that's her last thing she's putting on, she's got to transition to go be a catcher. And so to be able to come in and come out, because you do fail a lot, but you also got to go play defense. So having a transition routine, having a physical barrier that allows your brain to associate, okay, you know what, I'm going to go catch. And then when I'm done, if I'm still frustrated, I can come back in and I can be frustrated about my last at bat, but I can't take it on the field. And then once I put those batting gloves back on, it's about, now it's my next at bat, our girls have a ton of things that they go to. Some of the girls will go to the water cooler. They'll fill up a cup. They'll kind of sip on their water and think about their at bat. Where did they go wrong, and what's their adjustment for their next at bat? They'll crush the cup, throw it away, throw away those feelings, throw away that bat, boom, on to the next one. So just a ton of things in competition to go to. And that's where most people go wrong, is they don't have those things. So they just live in the frustration, and they just hope that they get a hit, or they hope they make a good play on defense, and then they all magically feel better. But that's like gambling your performance, and that's never a good place to be. So intent doesn't happen by chance, happens by intention. That's probably the biggest thing.
It's amazing how granular and specific you guys are getting within the program to do things like that, right? When I think of, I just think honestly, preparation planning, it gives you more freedom in life. An opinion of mine, maybe true, maybe not. But when I think about even just planning workouts on a weekly basis, if I plan them ahead of time, there's a higher likelihood that I'm going to execute them on those particular days, which in and of itself is going to make me feel better. And it's really cool to see that you guys are getting so specific, which each of those little things to transition you from one thing to the next to increase your likelihood of success. Absolutely amazing. Something that I would personally never think of. The next question here, Ellie, and it's interesting because you were in a leadership role as a player, right? You were captain of Florida State at one point. How did the coping mechanisms for navigating the anxiety, stress as a player, has that changed at all as you're kind of in a coaching role? Is it similar? What's the difference been between being a player to now being a coach and helping others or yourself with performance anxiety, things of that nature?
Yeah, no, it's definitely the same. It's just channeled in a different way. So like, you know, I think the transition routines for me are still huge to this day. I have a lot of different hats that I wear. I'm a mental performance coach. I'm a friend. I'm a girlfriend. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. I have all of these things. So I do my best to transition and not bring work into the house, not bring the house into work. If I'm asking my kids to do it, I have to do it myself first, right? So I got to lead myself first so I can lead my people the way that they deserve. So that's other things too, like making sure I take care of myself. So like I have to get my morning workout in. I know that that's something that makes me more present at work. It makes me feel better. It makes me have more energy. So again, I have to plan my week accordingly. Really big at the time blocking of my time. Really intentional with my PM routine, making sure I'm getting enough sleep because I know if I don't sleep, I don't feel good, and I have to feel good because I have to give energy. And if I need to give energy, that assumes that I have it. So just all of those discipline routines, it's just, shifted into my life. I feel like I'm still in performance in some capacity as far as my job and my role. I keep that same competitiveness in my role, and just really, if I'm going to ask, I'm never going to ask my athletes, my clients to do something that I'm not going to do myself. So holding
I love
myself
that.
that, yeah, it is really big for me. It's just all of the same things, really just in kind of a different way. And I've obviously learned a ton with my mentors and, just working with different sports and genders and ages. Like it's just made me so much better, and it's made me be more detailed with processes and routines and being better for myself, for everyone else. So it's a lot of the same stuff, just different channel.
Awesome. I want to talk about your half marathon experience, and I think it was from the Tallahassee half marathon. Is that what you guys
Mhm.
ran last year,
Yeah.
Ellie? Because we talked about it last year when we were in Clearwater, and I was just really impressed with your time and everything. Tell us a little bit about that. Can you share your time that you got, and then
Yep.
just what your experience was like?
I I think my time was like 152. 152 or 154, one of those two. I think it was 152. But training for the half marathon. So training for a marathon, training for an Ironman is like this gauntlet of just a little bit ridiculously long. Um, but so training for the half marathon was really fun to me. I was like, oh, this is so much shorter. This is so much more fun, but you got to push the pace a little bit more. So it like definitely had its areas where it was super tough. Definitely not easy by any means. Um, but went into it with, my two friends, and I was like, oh, like no expectations. I was like, we're just gonna run this. Kaylee Rafter caught for the Canadian national team. She was in the Olympics in 2021. That was her last Olympics. She literally went from couch to half marathon. So that is just, she's a dog.
Amazing.
Like
Awesome.
unbelievable, right? Couch to like, because she was just like she trained super hard for so long for the Olympics. So like after the Olympics, she kind of was just like chilling, whatever. So couch to half marathon, unbelievable. Like I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And then me and Bailey were kind of in it together, and we just kind of started. I didn't have no pace in mind. It was the same thing. I was just like, I'm just going to run this to run, because that's like when I do my best, is kind of just like not no expectation, but I'm not going to be like, oh, you have to get this done in an hour and a half. And for what, Ellie? There's no reason other than just to do it. So anyways, but we start running and started out pretty like just chilling, like running with the crowd, having fun. Like we had a couple other people running with us from the strength and conditioning department. So we just kind of do this thing where we like want the whole community to do it, but only a certain amount of individuals actually say yes. So we just kind of want to like bring everyone together and like have everyone kind of like push together. So that's kind of the purpose. And then we're like kind of in it. And I'm like, I feel kind of good. I looked at Bailey and I was like, Bailey, can we do this in under two? And she's like, tell me you want to do it and let's do it. Cause she could do it. And she was like, all right, then I'm setting the pace. And I was like, all right, let's do it. So then we start running, we're running faster and it's hard. I'm running hard and I'm like, ooh, this is tough, but I'm like, okay, let's go. And then we start getting closer to the end and we're at mile like 10. And I was like, Bailey, we're just going to full send this right now. And one of her cross country runners actually just like hopped in to like run with us. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so funny. So this cross country runner is just like laughing and talking. And I'm like, I feel like I'm sprinting and this girl is just like floating in the air
Cross-country
running. And I'm
runners
like,
are the worst.
yeah. Oh my God. I was like, this is so funny right now.
Yeah.
And I'm just like having a great time. And then the last like 2 miles, I was like, here we go. And I was like 7.5 minute per mile pace and like crossed the finish line. And I was just like crushed. I was like, that was so hard, but it was so fun. So like halfway through decided like, oh, let's get this thing under 2. And then I was like, oh, like we're really going to make it under 2. Might as well start running faster. We only got 2 miles left. So then just start like sprinting to the finish. Good vibes, obviously, as you know. So yeah, that's kind of how that happened. It was hard. It was really hard, but it was super fun.
Yeah, there's a few feelings that are better, especially within a race, and cross country, track and field. That was my background growing up, where you're into a race in the beginning. You're like, oh man, I feel freaking good right now.
Yeah.
And then you can push the pace like that, have an awesome result. Let me put this in comparison for people. When I ran my half marathon, and I did it to go as fast as I possibly could, I ran it 1 hour 48 minutes, which means I'm willing to bet if Ellie was next to me on the race, Ellie would have left me in the dust if we were going to be side by side in a half marathon. Really, really impressive time, especially considering that you guys decided to really race like halfway through. Super, super impressive. I was impressed with that last year. And we talked about it initially, which is. Hey, listeners. First, thanks so much for listening to the show. A quick reminder here, if you're new to the gym, or you're not sure what to do or how to start, navigate over to hometowngym.net. This is our website where we have fitness programs for beginners, where you can start with a sample class at no cost to you with support 7 days per week. In addition to that, we have even more free content through the website over there. Again, that's hometowngym.net. Thanks so much. We're back to our show. Absolutely awesome. Transitioning back over to your Florida State career, and I hope in the future that we get to kind of tell your entire story at Florida State, because there's so many stories within just that story. And I don't know if you can come up with one or two, but I was just curious, what are one or two of your just favorite all-time moments from your time with Florida State softball when you were playing?
Okay. One of the coolest moments was Sid was on this team. We were at the World Series. We were playing Auburn. I was on first base. I had just walked. Callie Harrod behind me. We're losing. We're losing by 3 runs. Callie Harrod comes up top of the 7th inning, and hits a home run and ties it up. And I will literally never forget that moment. It was one of the coolest moments ever. Callie's one of my best friends, someone who I kind of mentored as a leader, coming up. So she was a freshman, I was a junior. It was like one of the coolest things. In the game, a couple games prior to that, we had come back and we had beat UCLA from behind, and that was like super cool. So the World Series in general, my junior year, was awesome. That was great. And then another really big moment for me was Sid wasn't on this team, but my freshman year, Courtney Cenas. So we played Michigan in a super regional. Game 1, Michigan beat us 17-3, like just absolutely ran it up on us kind of in a disrespectful way. They were bunting and stealing, and they're winning by like 12 runs. And we were just like, what is happening? But anyways, it is what it is. The game is the game. It's super regionals. But so then the next day, this was before we did 3-game series. The next day, we come back, game 1, we just absolutely kick it. We give it to them. Okay. And then, cause our senior class was like, you know what? Like we're going to win this. They were like, I don't care about this game. We got 2 games left. We're going to win this. So we win game 1 the next day. So series is tied up 1-1. And then we have to play right again, back to back now. Cause we do that. And, bottom of the 7th inning, game's tied 2-2. We've got a runner on first base, 2 outs, 2 strikes. Courtney Cenas, who's a senior, she's from Hawaii, hits a home run to walk it off for us to go to the World Series for the first time.
That's wild.
Under Lonnie.
Wow.
You should look up the YouTube video after this.
I'll go check it out.
Absolutely electric. The crowd was electric. There was so many people there. I will literally, it was one of the coolest moments. I have the chills right now, even thinking about it, but it was
I've
super
got the chills
cool.
just listening to the story. I can't wait to
Yeah.
go check it
Well,
out after this.
super
Awesome.
cool too, because, Courtney Cena, she was one of those, she's from Hawaii, like really struggled with school, just obviously in a whole different world over here, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like grew up in Hawaii, typical island girl, like one of the funniest people I ever met. And she would every single night go to the cages, 10 o'clock, get some work in, get some extra work in, worked really hard, and she got her moment in the biggest moment of her career, and she got her swing off, and we went to the World Series. And oh man, it was so cool. That one's up there for me too. So yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to go check that out after this. I go back and it's so sad, right? Because I met Sid after her playing career was over, and you can't
Yeah.
travel back in time. But you get the fun questions whether you're at the gym or something. You're like, oh, if you could travel back in time, what would you do? And I would go back and pretty much watch every single game of the 2016, 2017 season to be able to
Yeah.
watch you guys play like in real
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And it would be so awesome to go back. So I actually watch a lot, well, what I can of the games from those teams where she's playing with you, and I got to go see if I can find that afterwards and watch the whole thing. That'd be awesome time spent for me. Want to talk about your time on the New Zealand national team at least a little bit. How did you get involved in that and you become captain? What was that like?
Oh, that was probably one of the better, like one of outside of obviously college softball, but just can't match playing for your country. I was born in New Zealand, been back and forth. So, um, super cool culture in New Zealand. I feel like I'm more of like a New Zealand a Kiwi. We call ourselves Kiwis. I feel like I'm more
Yeah,
of a Kiwi than my American side, which there's no dig on anyone. I just feel like that's I'm an island girl, but
that's
um,
awesome.
yeah, don't look like it, but I do really feel like it. But so my junior year of high school, um, New Zealand team kind of started to get really back into the international world. Didn't know anything about it. Someone reached out to my dad. They knew he played softball, knew he had a daughter, knew I was getting recruited for whatever reason. I don't know, but they were just like, "Hey, we're going to the world championships and the junior world championships in South Africa. Can you send a video of Ellie in? You know, her good things, blah, blah, blah." So send a video in, and they're like, "Yep, let's do it." So I didn't know anyone. I was like, all right, we had two other, no, maybe one or two other American Kiwi girls on the team, but mostly obviously everyone lived in New Zealand. And met in Cape Town, South Africa was my first junior World Series with the New Zealand national team. And it was one of the coolest experiences of my life. Like, so cool. Love the girls, got along with them great, fit right in, did really well. And then that was kind of where it started. And then played a couple more junior championships, but I started playing with the women when I was like the next year. So I was young, like real young. And I was like 18 and they were like 25 to, 40,
Yeah.
honestly. It was like, it was crazy. I traveled to Yukon, Canada to play in my first women's world championships. And it's like 2 hours from Alaska. The
That's
sun's out.
wild.
Yeah. And
Yep.
I just, travel all over the world, played in 6 world championships, 2 junior world championships with the national team. And my last 2 world championships, I was fortunate enough to be the captain, which was one of the coolest things that I feel like I can say about myself is just the whole captain thing means a lot to me. Even at Florida State, it was probably my favorite accomplishment that I had in my career at Florida State. And then obviously with the national team too, because I play with so many cool humans, and for them to want me to be their leader is like pretty humbling for me. So it was great. Travel the world, seeing different cultures, seeing different things, just again with the whole perspective thing, it really changed my life, and it was so fun. Really enjoyed my time with that. So it was super cool to be able to represent my country.
Amazing, and thanks for sharing that with us, Ellie. I can only imagine how cool that must have been. One, just to represent a country that you love, and I love America. That would have been so cool to
Yeah.
do that on any level. But then,
Yeah.
just gosh, to get to go and experience the world like that, and I think it's so cool that they embrace you as well, even though you didn't necessarily spend your entire life right
Yeah.
in New Zealand or a
Yeah.
significant part of it either.
Hmm. Took
Absolutely
some
amazing.
time. Took some
Yeah.
time. We had some growing pains for sure, but just head down, work, and be respectful of the culture. And they were like, "Oh, you're like us." I was like, "Ah, yeah,
Absolutely awesome. You own a business.
I do."
What's the story behind the mental performance coaching? How did it start?
Yeah, so kind of with my story, I mentioned Brian Kane, kind of my mentor. He really helped me in college when I was struggling. COVID, so right out of college, got a job at East Carolina University. I was the assistant coach there for a couple of years. And during COVID, I'm not kidding you, like being on my bike training for the Ironman and just like riding my bike for hours in the country, trying not to get eaten by dogs. Um, I just really started thinking about what I really love and what I really want. Um, and I just got to this place where I was like, man, like Kaner's doing it. I feel like I can do it. There's no females in the space. I have really good mentors, really good network of people. So I just called him up and I was like, hey, Brian, like, what do you think about this? And he's like, Ellie, you can do anything that you really want to do. There's definitely a demand for it. There's no females in the space. But there's also no guarantees kind of thing. And I was like, you know what? I don't have kids in a family I got to worry about. Like, if I'm going to take a risk, this is the time to do it. So during COVID 2020, I was like, I left my job, left on good terms, but just decided I wanted something different. Ended up moving to Orlando, did some lessons to keep my feet on the ground.
For sure.
Finally started my mental performance business. And then I just started doing Zoom calls, working one-on-one with a wide variety of athletes, and just word of mouth honestly was really big for me. I'm really bad at social media, but word of mouth was big for me. And all of a sudden I have all of these clients and I'm like taken away from lessons. So then I'm like doing mental performance most of the time, lessons a little bit. And then Brian Kane called me and Kocha called me on the same day. Both offered me a job. And I was like, oh, this is really tough. Like, I don't know what to do right now.
It must have been a tough. Did you have to
Oh,
pick like one or the other? I'm assuming.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
then I was like, what if I could do both? It's like, what if I could do both? Like, I don't know. Like, what if I could do both? Because I really want to go to Florida State. Like, I don't, I just, that's amazing. This is what I've always dreamed of, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I ended up being able to do both. So I kind of do some coaching with Brian Kane's mental performance team.
Hmm.
And, I'm at Florida State full time, but I'm definitely finding that the Florida State full time, I'm just really in it. Like I'm all in with the squad. So I've kind of stepping back from the business and really kind of gone all in with the Knowles, but that's how it started. I don't think if I didn't start doing that, I would be here right now for sure. I'm, the director of performance. I'm the only kind of full-time on staff, I would say, in this role in NCAA softball. So super cool for me to kind of start paving that path. Just kind of see where it can go. I can always pick back up on the business if I chose to, but
For
really love
sure.
what I'm doing here. Love the Knowles and super excited for the future of this role and the squad.
I loved what you said about when you were riding your bike, not trying to get eaten by dogs. By the way, when I was training for the half marathon, we have my in-laws have a place out in West Virginia. It's my favorite place in the world, middle of nowhere, and there are more stray dogs there than I can possibly describe.
Wow.
And you'll never know, like when you go around the corner and they'll just start chasing you. And it's frightful when it happens.
Horrible.
At least when you're on a bike, you can maybe out pedal them, but dogs are
Yeah.
fast. I don't
Oh
know.
my gosh. No, I literally, first time it ever happened, I'm like in the middle of the country. I don't even know where I am. I'm just like riding my bike around East Carolina, like
Yeah,
literal farms, like everywhere. And this dog just comes out of nowhere. And I was like, I'm going to run it over. Like, I'm going to run this dog over. And it was so scary. And that was the first time it
it
happened.
is.
And then it
Yeah.
happened again and again and again. And I was like,
Jeez.
I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I was like, I would rather be on a road with cars. Like these dogs are so scary. And I also don't want to run over a dog. Also,
Me
I
and
have
both.
clip-ins. I have clip-ins on. If I'm going to just fall.
Oh gosh, I didn't even think about that. So
Yeah.
there's been a couple of times where we'll be on motorcycles out in West Virginia, and we've almost run over dogs that just jump out in front of you. It's frightening. Anyway, to piggyback on that story, I really love that. Like I tend to think I do my best thinking when I'm running or in the middle of a workout or something like that. Like I'll literally like have an idea. This whole platform, by the way, came through thoughts, and businesses all just start as ideas, whether it's Apple or your mental performance coaching business, Ellie, or Hometown Gym. And so like I'll be like, oh, that's a good idea. And I'll like email myself that I was like thinking about, some certain thing. But I love that you said that, because I think a lot of at least my best thinking is actually not when I'm I don't know, doing intentional thought where I'm like, I'm going to sit down and work on the business today. It's actually when I'm out doing something completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It was wild. I was like, what is happening? But you just get this clarity. Like when you're in the thick of an actual job, you think about that. And then when you come home, you think about your family. So there's no like space for clarity, for like whatever you actually feel to like come to the surface. So I just felt like COVID happens and you're just like, nothing's going on. I don't even know what to think about. So then all of these things start happening. And then I'm on my bike and I have all these really cool ideas. And I'm like, oh, what if? And I'm like, you know what? There's no someday on the calendar. The only day on the calendar is today. So let's just do it. Like, let's see what happens. And now I'm here. So it was really scary there for a while. I leave my job with benefits during COVID. And I moved to a foreign area, where I know nobody. Super interesting, but great time for some growth. And now we're here. So it all had its course, I guess.
Every decision that you make is a path to get you to kind of where you're going to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And going back to you being all in on Florida State, I know the team, and I know you know this, right? Values you so highly. I can recall Michaela doing an interview last year where, all she was saying, my work with my mental performance coach, XYZ, and how much it had helped her. And I can't even imagine how much you helped the other individuals on the team and how much that's just progressed to make everyone not only better softball players, but just life can be really hard,
Yep. Yeah.
especially mentally sometimes, just to be able to help them,
Mhm.
just as human beings as well, Ellie. So your work it's absolutely amazing. Um, One more question here, and we'll kind of put a bow on everything. What are one or two of the most critical habits that you implement on a daily basis,
Mm.
to to be efficient or for your health, or I guess that are just the most impactful on your life?
Yeah, sleep is number one. If anyone knows me, they know how much I value sleep and how I like my environment that I set to sleep is pretty intentional on that end. I'm definitely someone I do like to have fun. I'm not like 100% of the time, but a lot of the time my sleep, especially in season when we're in it, sleep is the number one, and having really good healthy habits around sleep so I can get good sleep. I definitely prioritize that. And then obviously movement for me, whatever it looks like, movement is huge for me. And then just my, what I put in my body. So those are number one, two, and three. Sleep, movement, and what I put in my body are definitely the three things that just keep me um energized, happy, healthy. Always just trying to be the best version of myself because my athletes and everyone I work with and for deserve that. So take a lot of pride in that. Try to do my best to hold myself accountable to that 80% of the time. Have some fun. Obviously, that 20% got to have that sprinkled in there as well. So try to have a really good balance between all of those things.
I love it. What's next for you, Ellie? What's going to be going on in your life here in the next coming months, weeks, days?
We are Monday, we are full force into season, and it's
Yeah,
just going to
baby.
be every single day from Monday on, hopefully until the start of June. We'll be all in with the Knowles, just, the daily process of, making the best squad that we can. Happy, healthy, strong, durable, competitive Seminoles. To see what we can do this season. That's next. The best time of year coming up. So super excited.
Agreed on that. Where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, I'm Instagram and Twitter are really all I, really interact on. I'm
Sure.
not the best at, putting stuff out there about what I actually do. But Coach L Cooper, so Coach EL Cooper, is my handle on both of those things. One of my goals, I'm trying to get better at putting stuff out there, but it's like this like thing between what should I put out, what should I not, got that confidentiality with the people I work with and the program, trying to protect
I
the
get it.
program. So sometimes I feel like I'm just working so much, right? It's tough to like put stuff out there, but I feel like I can be better at it, so we'll see what I can do with that.
I love it there, Ellie. Any closing thoughts for anyone listening or watching?
No, I mean, I had a lot of fun. This was great. Super excited that you reached out to me. So thanks for having me. Thanks for all of the kind words. You're an awesome man. So yeah, thanks a lot. It's been fun.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining me, Ellie. It's been a pleasure. It's the longest podcast that we've had here today. 90 minutes goes by in an absolute breeze when
I
we're
know.
talking to somebody
I
as
feel like I could
successful
talk.
and awesome
Yeah.
like you. Could do it all day. So to everyone
Yeah.
listening, watching, again, that's Ellie Cooper. Again, you can find her social media at Coach L Cooper. We'll link that here below. We know your time's super valuable, so thanks so much for tuning in, dropping into the Hometown Gym podcast. Wherever you're at, check out the Florida State Seminoles here as the softball season is going to be kicking off. I'm going to link the schedule here below to that. Ellie, I appreciate you. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks, Brandon.